I think I learned a lot
Hmm.
in the College of Combat because with running these various tactical exercises on the ground and in the sand model, plus the association with some very nice, strong minds of our students,
Hmm.
did teach us all a lot. Srupi and I decided to do something else
Hmm.
with the higher command force. We ran a 3-day exercise with the ladies present. I sat at the back and my wife ran the show. What we had is students and their wives sitting in the hall, and we had given a series of questions of how a couple would handle problems
Okay.
when they were in command of larger forces. Not only tactical problems, that's the sphere of the military man, but social problems. Now, Srupi and I had a lot of experience, as I described last time, when I took over one corps after the assassination of Indira Gandhi. There was a political upheaval inside the country. There was a lot of killings going on, uncontrolled, with the police not acting. I've gone through all that. And also, certain communities, like the Sikh community, for instance, feeling very upset
Hmm.
about what had happened in Punjab.
Right.
Now, we have to be careful because what happens is that politics at the best of times is a pretty dirty game.
Hmm.
And we in the military have to be above that. The second thing we have to learn is that the military is responsible to the Constitution of India,
Right.
which is interpreted by the Supreme Court and
Right.
not by the government.
Right.
That's one of the strengths
Right.
of the Indian military, uh, as designed by the founding fathers of this country when they worked out the Army Act and the Navy Act and passed it in Parliament. I must give it to those gentlemen, far-sighted enough to see that things can't go politically wrong and how does the military react. For instance, one of the sections of the Army Act is that you are required to obey the lawful command of your superior officer. The crux is the lawful command. That means the normal command, which the recipient does not consider to be lawful, there's a question mark in his mind whether it should be obeyed or not. Now we are one of the few armies in the world who have trusted our military to firstly not intervene or interfere with the political system, but at the same time, from the army chief downward, to only accept a lawful command. There are times when you get an unlawful command to do certain things, which is the right of the officer corps, especially the senior officers, not to accept till it is clarified by either the Supreme Court or a superior authority. A result of this is that we have, it's not a military which stands to attention and says, Sir, Jo Hukam. It doesn't work like that. Any orders by the government have to be assessed by the military leadership to see whether it's lawful or not lawful. It happens again and again and again. Because politics, as I told you, is a dirty game. And many times the political leader wants to destroy certain democratically elected state governments, etc., by creating law and order problems. And we have to be very careful in the military as to how we handle that situation in case we are called out in aid to the civil authority, which is a legal requirement. So this aspect had to be passed on. I had to do that in personal talks and lectures to my students so that they understand that the Constitution is the main arbiter of how we function in the military and that we are responsive to the Supreme Court if there is a question of whether something is lawful or not lawful, and not by the government in power. Because any government can come and any government can go. See? So they mustn't use the military for political purposes. I think our press is also very, very alert on this subject because they are keep watching with a hawk eye to see whether appointments and promotions in the military are done in such a way so that political leadership has a direct control over some of the people they appoint. Now, it's a tricky affair, but nevertheless, a sensible human being who has no personal axe to grind has to learn how to handle himself. Now, this unfortunately is not happening in our police, though I suggested it should happen. Why? Because the police is controlled entirely at the state level by the chief minister and his MLAs and others. And even a deputy commissioner or a SSP of police or SP police, their postings and their promotions are made according to the local politicians' views on their capability. So unfortunately, they don't have a separate organization. Like in our case, it's the army chief controls the army, and any orders given to the army have to come through him. And there is an attempt. If you take China, for instance, it's a communist government. They believe that the Chinese military is entirely an arm of the Communist Party of China. That means the ruler is the Communist Party of China, and the military is an action arm of the Communist Party of China. So that happens in communist countries, it happens in the erstwhile Soviet Union, and it happens in China. Now, how far that is going to go, we wait and see. But I do recollect when I used to visit the Soviet Union, when it was a Soviet Union, many military commanders were disgusted with their politicians. But every military commander had a political officer under him, watching him and reporting directly to the party in case they felt that his loyalty was under question, so that he would not be promoted. That's how they control the military. I think when it comes to actual battle, a free-thinking army like the West has, whether it's America or Western Europe or Britain or for that matter India, is more capable because it has initiative right from the lowest ranks, where you can free think yourself. You don't have to wait for the hukum from a political boss. See, is generally more effective in battle than a soldier who is controlled politically all the time. So much for that. Now, when College of Combat, much of the training was given to the students, and I must say that they received it very well. There's one or two factors more before I leave that subject. You know, we had a year's course, so we invite officers with their wives and children. Many of them are small children, so that they could have a comfortable life, enjoy the salubrious climate of Mao. At the same time, be tactically free in their thinking to discuss and learn. You learn more from your fellow students, if I might say, than from the directing staff, because there's no set solution to many of the problems that we discuss. It's a question of, it's like a test board. Every problem is different. And it's your wits and the way your mind functions that is trained to find out what should be a reasonable answer as to what we should do. Now, because the children were also there and their wives, we got them very nice accommodation. We allowed them to bring their transport, their cars, and so on and so forth. So they lived comfortably. And the ladies had a very remarkably good time. And we had all sorts of adventure activities besides sailing. There was golf, there was hiking, there were trips to very interesting historical sites in the vicinity of Mao, whether it was Khajuraho or the various palaces of Baz Bahadur and the famous love stories, etc. We know. All these children had to be educated. And we had a central school. Now, you know what a central school is? A central school Sanghata, Kendriya Vidalya. Right. It's a good system of education because for government servants, you can establish a central school provided you give the land and provided you have enough students coming there, then they build the buildings, start off at tentage and they bring the teachers, etc., so that your children can be educated. And the result is that you have a similar type of education, whether you're north, south, east, or west in this country. For instance, you are posted in South India and everybody is speaking in Tamil, your central school will still teach in Hindi and English. So that officers and their wives, and for that matter, Jawans, can send their children to this central school and get the type of education that they expect from North India. Most of the troops come from there. So in Mao, we had a central school established. We gave the land, we gave the building, we gave the electricity connection, we gave the water. But what happens is, you play the game straight. Since courses come and courses go after a year, you see, the question was, how do you enter the central school with your children? You have to prove that you've had more postings and a varied life vis-a-vis anybody else so that your child can be taken into the school. Now, what the civilians did was that they used to, there's a lot of corruption in this department. To get the deputy commissioner's signature through his clerk, if you like, to say that they've had 10 postings. Now, a civil person doesn't get 10. It is the military which is posted all over. The result is slowly we found in Mao, there were not enough vacancies for the military children because the civilians had occupied the various seats in various classes. So you can't have more than about 35, 40 people in a class. So when I came there, I found that many of my officers could not get entrance for their children into the centers. So I took it up with the principal and so on. I said, look, we provided the accommodation. We are the ones who ran this and started this central school. So now why can't our children come in here? He says, because civilian children have occupied the seats since they have got more posting in the military. I said, how can that be? He says, I don't know, I've got a certificate. So I put some intelligence operations to see how this was done. We found a lot of corruption amongst clerical staff and others who get these posting, extra postings signed by the DC or somebody or the STM so that civilian children could get entrance in the centers. I found our children couldn't enter. So I took a dim view of this and I spoke to the head of the central school in Madhya Pradesh, who happened to be in Gwalior. I knew the chief secretary of Gwalior very well because he'd been a student of mine when I was an instructor in staff. So I rang him up, to do something about this. He spoke to the chief minister. He came back to say that, you know, central school Sangathan, Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan is a separate body. We don't have much control over it. Yeah. So we can sort of squeeze them a bit here and there, but the fact is that unless they agree. So I said, oh, let's send the boss here. So the boss of the central school in Madhya Pradesh came to see me. And I told him, I said, look here, this is not a fair one. He says, I'm sorry, we have to follow these rules. And since people have produced the certificates, whether they are right or wrong, we have to abide by that. So I said, then if you don't accept that certain wrong things are being done and the army is being denuded of its rights for entry to the school of its children, then I'll have to take some action. He says, General, you can do what you like, nothing going to happen. I said, all right. So the first thing I did was I cut off the water and electricity of the principal's house. Yeah. So he came running. Said, how can we function? I said, next, all your classrooms will have no water or electricity. Either put our children inside or else. Because it's our area, it's our buildings, it's our land, and therefore it's our electricity and our water. Stop the electricity and water. Till the man is very uncomfortable to live your life. If your house has no water and no electricity, then if your classrooms have no water and electricity, it's difficult to run your classes. So they came to heal. and they created special classes so that the military children could also be brought in. I just say to you that whichever area we look at in this country, there's a lot of corruption. And yet, if you have a certificate of a civil officer and all that, nobody questions that. Whereas there itself is where the corruption starts. It's a question of how much money was sent under the table. It's sad, but I think as far as the character and conduct of our people are concerned, if we do something about this corruption in this country, I think the president's government has done a fair amount, but much more needs to be done if you want this nation to progress. Indira Gandhi was supposed to have treated this corruption as endemic all over the world. Maybe so, but at least they do their work reasonably correctly because they are open to democratic elections where the news and other things come out very clearly, and so people don't get elected if they are caught up. Yeah. Whereas in India, they buy out the press also. So with the result, there's a lot of this corruption going on to favor a few against the many. That is something that we learned, and so one method of dealing with it is with a stick, and I attempted that with a fair amount of success. But a dim view was taken of my actions as far as the central school and the authorities are concerned. They complained right up to the government of India. But I said, you don't talk to me. You want to talk to me, you talk to my army chief first. And I'd already briefed the chief. So that's it. Such incidents took place. It's a lot of learning experience in this training institution of the army. It is, other than the National Defense College, as far as the army is concerned, the highest training establishment we have. After this was the National Defense College is under Ministry of Defense, where the brigadier level officers go more about it. I think I've already told you about the National Defense College. When I was a brigadier, I attended that after commanding the armored brigade. Right. Now, I got a posting order. You know, there was a rule. Mine's an interesting case, actually. I think there's a lot of, what would you call it? Kismat, maybe? Yeah. You see, a rule was passed that if you want to be an army commander, you must have 2 years service left. So you give 2 years as an army. That means very senior lieutenant generals who are very competent. If they didn't have 2 years service left for retirement, they were not made an army commander. So more junior had to be selected. So I was the cusp case because they said, to bring this rule of 2 years, we'll have it 1 year first. So you need 1 year service left in case you have to become an army commander. And I was the last man to with the 1 year service in 1987. And the matter came up to the Ministry of Defense, etc. And the army headquarters was reluctant to give me the rank because all the army command were already occupied. There is nobody retiring. So the only job was the vice chief of the army staff. The vice chief of the army staff in those days was not competent to become the army chief, and which I changed later when I became the army chief because he's a very competent man. Nonetheless, when the military secretary's branch asked Eastern Army, because J.K. Puri had about 3 months left, they said that, would you like to be posted to Delhi for 3 months? So since you belong to Delhi, he said, no, why should I go? What's the problem? They said, there's a chap called V N Sharma who has to be given a command before he reaches his 1 year level. He immediately said, yes, this is a very good friend of mine. So in his last 3 months, he came to Delhi, and thanks to him, I was given the Eastern Army Command. Now, when I got the Eastern Army Command, since I'd done a lot of exercises about a future possible conflict with China on the Eastern Army's borders in the Kameng Frontier Division of Arunachal Pradesh. So I was very well versed to take over that command, and I found it a fascinating command. And in about middle 1987, I was posted to Eastern Army as the Army Corps. I arrived over there with Surupi, and J.K. Puri was still there. He had taken a month's leave, before moving to Delhi, and he retained his house. He asked me, he said, can I retain my house for a month? I said, please do that. So we lived in the MES inspection bungalow for a month, whereas he went around all his formations to say goodbye. And now we had a problem in Eastern Army because this little fiddle had taken place on the border in 1986. It was still going on because in the winter everything freezes. Came summer in 1987, the matter cropped up again. The Chinese had entered a certain portion which we thought was ours. And the McMahon line, it's a question of Chinese view of the map vis-a-vis Indian view of the map. They think the McMahon line, even though they don't agree with it, is further south, whereas we think it's further north. So, it's a matter of perception. Anyway, General Narhari had already done the job. He had moved a whole battalion of infantry to certain ridge lines, and there was an argument going on between Army headquarters and Ministry of Defense on the one side, and Eastern Army headquarters on the other as to why have you confronted the Chinese without our permission. To prevent conflict. The Army headquarters had laid down what is known as a limit of patrolling. That means, let us suppose the so-called McMahon line is on the high ridge line. You're not allowed to patrol approximately 2 ridge lines further south, so that your patrols don't clash with any Chinese patrols that come. The Chinese are on the Tibetan side, which is a plateau, and their movement is very easy. Our side is on our side of the high mountains, very steep hills. The rain shadows on our southern side, because the monsoon hits these high peaks and rains like anything, full of craggy peaks at height, rushing streams, thick jungles at the lower height. Below 11,000 feet, there are thick jungles, deep valleys and deep ridgelines. That's 4 or 5 ridgelines before the McMahon line, running from east to west. So the thing here is that if you allow the Chinese to take one of the ridge lines, then very difficult to winkle them out. Right. So therefore, Chinese can move fast because they can go back. They can move 20 kilometers in a matter of 1 hour. You see, we take, if we have to move 20 kilometers, it takes us 2-3 days because if you go up a ridge line, down the valleys, and up the ridge line like that. Right. So General Narhari and General J.K. Puri had already moved troops beyond the limit of patrolling to prevent the Chinese from coming any further south. There's a big argument from Army headquarters to say, please come back because you have crossed the limit of penetration and limit of patrolling against our orders. Eastern Army was saying that, look, the Chinese have come here. They don't have a limit of patrolling. Tell them to go back. But the Army headquarters, led by the China Study Group, which is chaired by Rajiv Gandhi, the Prime Minister, say the country doesn't want to go to war, so get off it. So when I took over, this argument was going on. So I saw the point straight away. And General Sundarji was the chief. He gave me very clear instructions. He even rang me up and said, you cannot disobey orders. It's a court-martial offense. You have to come back when you're ordered. I said, I'm sorry, this is not a lawful command. Referred to Army Act so-and-so, I only accept the lawful command of my superior officer. Under these circumstances, I think your command is illegal. Therefore, I'd like the Supreme Court to tell me whether I should obey your order or not. So please raise the case to the Supreme Court to say, because I've got a border, you mark the border on my map, which is at place A. Chinese have crossed that, come to the south. And now our troops already with my predecessor are facing there, and you're telling me to come back. How can I come back unless the Chinese go back? Because my task is to protect India from external aggression. Therefore, I'm doing my job. Now you're telling me to come back so that I don't protect my country from external aggression. So if you think that the Chinese are right, then that means your view of the McMahon line is incorrect and their view is right. In which case, you please change your maps. Tell me that the McMahon line does not exist. and the whole of Arunachal belongs to China, then I'll go back to Guwahati and enjoy my life. See? So this argument took place. A.C. Pant was the defense minister. I sent a message directly to him with a copy to the chief to say that, look, these illegal orders are being given here. And would you please step into it and find out what's going on? He's coming on an election tour. There were two main problems I faced the moment I arrived in Eastern Army. One was this, where we were being asked to come back, and my corps commanders, others had already moved the troops forward. They were all reluctant to move back. And the previous army commander, J.K. Puri, is a very good officer, obeys orders. And he was in two minds as to what to do because A, he was being ordered to get his troops back. And all his corps commanders under him were saying, nothing doing, we are not going to come back. So I said, don't worry, let me handle this, since I was taking over from him. And I had to write to the defense minister. I said, look, these are illegal orders. So please correct the prime minister and the army headquarters. Because if the Chinese don't go back from the Mekong line, why should we? So we did face the Chinese there. I think the Chinese were a little surprised because their foreign ministry was in touch with our foreign ministry, and our foreign ministry bureaucrats, they can't understand what a map is. They don't find it on the ground. I don't know if you like reading maps. A map is a flat sheet of paper.
Right.
You have to study the contours and the heights given on the contour to see where are the ridge lines and where are the valleys and where are everything. Otherwise, if you are not doing that, it's just a flat piece of ground. That's what the map shows. So there are 3 or 4 ridge lines on our side, ranging from heights of 11,000 feet to 13,000 to 14,000 feet. The big deep valleys in between. It's not visible on a flat map unless you study the contour lines. So unfortunately, the foreign ministry advised the prime minister and everybody else that each army is just making a noise for nothing. You see? We told them not to go forward. They're going forward. They're, these military chaps, they want to create conflict when there's no reason to do so. They must be controlled. That's the view of the bureaucracy anyway. It's quite funny though, because Deng Xiaoping was there, and his brigadier, one of his brigadiers was advancing up the line, and one of the young captains on the thing told him, stop, this is Indian territory. He said, no, go away, you Indians are not reading your map correctly. If you don't go away, I've got a large force here and I'll beat you up. So the young captain let off a round of machine gun fire about 1 foot above this guy's head, and he went rolling back down the other side of the mountain as fast as he could. And he complained to his foreign ministry that these people don't even know how to read their maps, firstly, and secondly, they open fire. The Chinese were surprised that the Indians didn't go back. And then there was the brigadier wanted a discussion with the local brigadier. So the local brigadier went there, and the Chinese brigadier, they spoke to each other from across the mountain top, ridgeline top. And Chinese brigadier said that, look, we've got nuclear weapons here and we can destroy you chaps in no time. So you please don't act funny and don't stand in front of us. You go back. He was on communication with me. He told me that this is what he's saying. So I said, tell him, please start a nuclear thing. No, we are on top of a ridge line. Here, the nuclear weapon is not going to have any effect because it can't land on a pinpoint. We're on a ridge line. It will land behind us in the valley. Southwest monsoon is blowing. We are all in trenches with overhead protection. The fallout will come up and southwest monsoon is blowing it across to Tibet. So you're the guys who are going to suffer from the fallout, not us. You only murder yourself. If you fire a nuclear weapon, you don't be a bloody idiot. If you want to fire a nuclear weapon, fire it at Delhi, Vijay Chowk in Delhi, knock that government out. Then we'll go and capture your Lhasa and sort you guys out once and So he sent a message back, which we came to know later through the foreign ministry, to his foreign ministry. There's a mad brigadier over here. She's asking us to use nuclear weapons. Anyway, laughable as to how people get excited. But we were not budging from there. So Rajiv Gandhi had told the chief to get on with it because he's in charge of the China Study Group. Why is your army not obeying your orders? Mm. So he didn't get a satisfactory answer from the chief. He decided to visit Tawar. Mm. So he landed in a helicopter in Tawar. Mm. And I got a call from General Sundarji to say, you're the guy making such a big noise over here, not obeying orders. Mm. You go to Tawang now and you explain to the Prime Minister why you're doing these orders. I said, I'm not going to Tawang. I have got my div commander over there. I have my corps commander standing there as a consultant, if you like. But General J.M. Singh from the Guards is a Sardar officer, very competent. He'll deal with the Prime Minister. Let the Prime Minister talk to the general in charge. And let him talk to the Jawans and the JCOs and NCOs who will be there. So that's what happened. Rajiv Gandhi landed in a helicopter and he asked, there was a briefing. And then Major General James Singh took him out to have tea, where there were some Havaldars and JCOs, men. And so he asked one of the men, look, my foreign ministry is saying that we go back 20 kilometers and that we'll ask the Chinese to go back 20 kilometers. So one of the Havaldars spoke, he says, Pradhan Mantri Ji, in other words, dear Prime Minister, we are on 3 or 4 ridge lines. If we go back 20 kilometers, it will take us 3 days to come back. They're on the plateau, they go back 20 kilometers, it takes them 2 hours to come back. We can't take that advantage. It has to be not a distance by kilometers, but a distance by hours. In other words, if it's going to take us 2 days to come back, they should go back 2 days march back. You can go back to Lhasa after that. So it had to be a 3-stripe or Havaldar to explain to the Prime Minister. And it's very interesting. The politician has great respect for your Jawans, for your NCOs and your JCs. There are too many senior generals in army headquarters, hundreds of them, so nobody wants to talk to them. But men on the ground will tell you straight. And one of the JCOs said, yes, sir, are you afraid? Are you a funky person? Are you afraid of the Chinese? That means if they slap you, you will accept it. You give us the order, we'll go and thrash them right up to us. You see, I mean, it is an attitude. I was very pleased to see that. It shows the morale and guts of our troops on the ground, ready to take it on. They're afraid that their officers are not man enough to give them the orders, right? So I think Rajiv Gandhi was very impressed. He went back and he said, fine, let it be. So we didn't move out from there. And I must tell you later, when I was made the chief, much against everybody's will, because a person who bucks orders is not necessarily a good man to be made into a chief. But nevertheless, he did make me the chief. And the first question he asked me, he said, Chinese are inviting me to visit Beijing and meet Deng Xiaoping, the president. And my foreign ministry is saying, don't go there, because if you go there, you'll be insulted, since you have stood up to them in the Northeast. He asked me, General, what do you think about that? I said, you must go. The Chinese are the middle kingdom, heaven above, earth beneath, here in the middle. He won't come here. Therefore, perforce, you have to go there. We don't want to fight the Chinese. Make friends. And when Rajiv went there, I don't know if you saw the television, Deng Xiaoping is a small man, Rajiv is a big man, but they held hands and he wouldn't let go his hand for a whole 2 minutes, shaking hands, having come. And he also complimented Rajiv Gandhi on a very well organization of defense of his borders. See? So we made friends with Deng Xiaoping. That situation does not exist with Xi Jinping, but nevertheless, unless you stand up, you are not given the respect. The second point in Eastern Army that came to my notice was that is the question of the Assam Rifles. The Assam Rifles comprised in my time of about 22 battalions. They are a paramilitary force manned by regular army officers. Their boss is a lieutenant general of the regular army. Uh, the Home Ministry says that since the Assam Rifles is a paramilitary force, not a military force, it should come under Home Ministry. All right, so that's fine. But then when they come under Home Ministry, they want police officers to go and man it, which is army officers. And the whole culture of the Assam Rifles is the culture of the military officer controlling it and not a police officer. So General Sundati apparently decided, since there were a large number of files moving up and down between Home Ministry and Ministry of Defense, to say that since it's a paramilitary force, Home Minister was then Mufti Muhammad Saeed, who is the father of the lady who became Chief Minister of Kashmir, J&K, right? Mehbooba Mufti is his daughter. And Mufti Muhammad Saeed was the Home Minister. And he said, since the Home Ministry is paying for these people, I mean, you hand them out to the Home Ministry. So this argument is going on. But out of the 22 battalions, 20 were under my command, operational command. So I was given an instruction by Army headquarters to say, hand over these battalions back to the Assam Rifles so that it can go under Home Ministry. I refused. I said, I'm sorry. These are military personnel who are extremely competent in Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and such areas. They are recruited from the local people and from others. They are one-to-one with the local people, and they run a military control. And we cannot part with them. We don't want a dual command because the borders are just there, and these are border states, and the military is controlling these border states. Assam Rifles is vital to our defenses, so I will not go to part with them. I refuse to part with them. So then I was told that some police officer will come, senior police officer, to take over from me. I said, if he comes here, there's that dungeon in Fort William in Calcutta. I should shove up inside there and you will not see him again. So please don't send him anywhere there. Anyway, these are just bullshit things, but it passes clearly the view what has to happen. So I sent a message to KC Pant. I said, please correct your army chief. He is trying to get rid of the Assam Rifles from military control, which is not acceptable. And you have to study the history of these politicians. KC Pant's father was Govind Vallabh Pant. After India's independence, Govind Vallabh Pant was the chief minister of UP for many years, very stalwart, and he became home minister for a long period in Indian Nehru's government. Staunch man. And when he was asked that Assam Rifles was run by British officers, and should it be handed over to the police, he said no. Assam Rifles will have to be kept exactly as it is. And when the British officers go, it will be manned by Indian Army officers, because that's the effectiveness of that force. If you give it to the police, it will be under each MLA and each chief minister, and it will come to naught. So I wrote to KC Pant. I said, please remember what your father said. And please correct your army chief, since he's trying to get rid of the Assam Rifles due to persistent questioning by Home Ministry. So KC Pant's staff told me, we don't even know anything about this. I said, in that case, you better wake up. You must see what's going on under your noses. KC Pant happened to come to Calcutta on an election visit. I had sent a message that I'd like to meet him. But he sent a message, I'm on election visit and nothing to do with the military, so I don't want to meet anyone. But I was at the airport. Since I was the army commander, the airport was under my jurisdiction. And I was on the tarmac when he came down from his aircraft. I said, I am so-and-so, and I have to talk to you for 10 minutes of your time. He's very kind. He spoke to me for 10 minutes, and I gave him this point about the Assam Rifles and about the unnecessary